Hey guys, I'm Izanami, and I climbed from Unranked to Ascendant with this off-meta Warlock build. At the end of last season, I had been one-tricking Heat Rise's Warlock for quite some time, and with the goal of expanding my horizons and growing out of my Solar Warlock crutch, I decided to learn Void Warlock, and to say I was pleasantly surprised is an understatement. This class is so incredibly good at countering a variety of playstyles, and the versatility and playmaking potential is insane. This video will be split up into 3 parts. A build guide, a playstyle primer, and then a discussion about the evolving metas in Destiny 2. Let's get into the build guide. This loadout is centered around my current favorite primary type, 120 RPM hand cannons. You might think I'm a sicko for running a hand cannon in the Immortal meta, but this kit is very good at playing out of SMG range and keeping peak time minimal. Any very high ranged and stability rolls with 60 to 70 or more of each of these stats will suit you well. Here's the 3 that I use. The first one I use is Pure Poetry. Yeah, that random gun from Strikes that you've been sharding. With the perfect roll, it has an impressive 85 range with the newly buffed Fragile Focus, along with Elemental Capacitor bringing the stability up to 70. Good luck getting a decent roll with these perks though, since there's a 12 column perk selection. Round Robin is the most accessible of the 3. I crafted this roll here with small bore, ricochet rounds, keep away, elemental capacitor, and a stability masterwork. With the passive bonuses active, these stats are very healthy with 72 stability and 80 range. Lastly, I use this max stability Igneous Hammer with opening shot. Igneous Hammer comes with absolutely jacked stats out of the box, so you don't even need any stat boosting perks like the other weapons have. Unfortunately, this is unobtainable, but the idea with the rolls I go for on 120s is to go for very high stability and range, usually through perk options. Hopefully Bungie increases the availability of top tier 120 hand cannons at some point. The biggest pain point with these is how difficult it is to get one. As for your secondary weapon, any shotgun that works for you will do the trick. My current favorites are Matador, Practicist, and Mindbender's Ambition. Now for the subclass and abilities. This loadout has amazing synergy with the Void Warlock subclass, which specializes in applying pressure and breaking up slow play. For the super, I usually run the Slova Bomb, but I'll use Vortex Bomb if I'm fighting bubbles. For aspects, I run Devour, which is good for clutch situations, allowing you to heal out of nowhere off of a melee or super kill, and Child of the Old Gods, which is an insanely strong ability that prevents regen and debuffs targets. Hitting someone with 2 shots from my hand cannon and having the orb go after them to stop them from restoring health allows me to easily clean up my primary fights. If the orb ends up going after somebody at full health, you can 2-tap them with your hand cannon, and the debuff plus the leeching effect will take them out. I run Healing Rift with Child of the Old Gods, granting grenade and melee energy on terrain, and providing safety to peek shot from, keeping me healthy for Fragile Focus to stay active. My grenade of choice is Void Spike. This grenade is extremely strong. Obviously the utility from any grenade that sticks on a wall is strong for opening up engagements or finishing kills, but the Void Spike in particular is different from a lightning grenade or a Germ Mine because it instantly puts out damage and at a very high rate. Spike grenade will start doing damage right away with no arming delay. Onto the fragments. There are 3 fragments that I consider a must-run for this loadout. The first one is Echo of Vigilance. This newly released fragment is an absolute powerhouse in PvP, granting you an overshield whenever you win a gunfight and are left at low health. It's a budget one-eyed mask, without needing to earn exotic. Next up is Echo of Leeching. This fragment grants health regeneration on melee defeat, and can help you clutch up 1v3 situations, as well as escape close range fights without being left at critical health. Lastly, Echo of Dilation. Crouching grants faster sneak and enhanced radar. I'll explain why this is so good in the playstyle primer later in this video. The 4th fragment is whatever you prefer to run. I run Echo of Remnants to make my Void Spike last longer, but there's plenty of other good options. In Season of the Deep, there are 2 artifact mods that provide a significant amount of strength to this build. Unto the Breach creates a Void Breach whenever you defeat a debuff target, which is anyone that's been tagged by your Child of the Old Gods or your melee ability. The Protective Breach mod grants you a free overshield for picking up these breaches. These mods work in PvP, so take advantage of them while you can. Onto the armor, something that you may have noticed is the handling of these weapons is really lackluster. Luckily, Warlock has access to Ophidian aspects, which completely solve this issue. This also allows me to skip out on reloaders, so I can double up on dexterity mods. Running fastball when using Void Spikes is also crucial, as not only are they easier to aim at very specific surfaces to get the perfect placement from a distance, but they also have a faster travel time, giving your opponent even less time to react to a grenade with no arming delay. For stats, just make sure your recovery and discipline are maxed out so you can get your grenade and Child of the Old Gods back as fast as possible. Now for the playstyle primer. If you haven't used 120s much before, the strengths of the weapon stem from the range, the forgiveness, team shots, and the peak shots. The selection of 120s that I showed you can all 3-tap at around 40 meters, with some forgiveness, allowing for one-of-those shots to be body shots. When I use this build, I try to take long angles instead of SMG range and provide team shots with my primary, and I typically use my Rift on cooldown to keep the pressure up with Child of the Old Gods, as well as taking an extremely safe primary fight with a 120 and a Rift. When playing against more aggressive players, you can predict exactly the moment they will round the corner by crouching with Echo of Dilation to enhance your radar, and then throwing a charged melee at them to push them into the air and win the fight for free. I would recommend cleaning up melee tags with the primary, as trying to get close with a shotgun is high risk and eliminates the point of pushing them back entirely. Generally, if somebody's close enough to push them back with the melee ability, they have their shotgun out anyway. This build also excels at splitting up slow play, putting in huge damage at range and applying pressure around cover with spike grenades and Child of the Old Gods. While you're not actively engaging, you should always crouch so that you can keep tabs on your opponents with Echo of Dilation's enhanced radar, as well as disappearing off of their radar. The key to success with this loadout is to play range, and play very patiently, as the strengths of the build quickly dissolve if you get too aggressive. I think this loadout is top tier, even in this SMG meta. I trust this build on most maps, and it proved versatile enough to get me to Ascendant this season. In Destiny 2, metas rise and fall. The general population latches onto whatever seems overpowered, and then at some point it'll get nerfed, and then the next meta will rise. But in the overly complex sandbox of Destiny 2, things don't often become overpowered out of the blue. The sandbox has so many imbalanced options that whenever something gets nerfed, the next most overpowered thing is something that's been around forever. If you cut the top off of Mount Everest, the new top of the mountain is whatever is under that. I started realizing this pattern not long ago, when Lord Wolves became meta for the second time. Nothing had actually changed about the weapon for years. People just stopped using it. People started using it again because of Omnioculus, and realized that it had been overpowered all along and people just hadn't been using it. The same thing applies to Antaeus Swords, Young Ahamkara's Spine, and plenty of other things. This all falls back onto the Voidlock build that I discussed in the video. One day, the PvP sandbox might recess enough so that this class could end up near the top for Warlocks. Child of the Old Gods and Echo of Vigilance are incredibly out of band, but not quite enough for today's meta. Maybe a few years down the line, if Bungie attempts to keep balancing the sandbox, we'll see this happen. And that's it for the video. Thanks for sticking around until the end. Leave a comment below if there's any other builds you think I should try, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thanks for watching.